Could be finding their seats. We'll get ready to get started. Okay, this is the July 24th, 24 meeting of the Joint Prison Oversight Committee. We appreciate everyone being here today. Madam Chair, if you would call the roll.
Senator Chambliss.
Here.
Senator Singleton. Senator Roberts. Representative Hill. Here. Representative England. Representative Simpson.
Okay, there is a conference going on, and the missing members of the committee are actually watching live stream. So we have everybody watching, but not everybody is physically present. And then we have a few other legislators who have joined us on the dais, and then a few in the crowd. So we appreciate all the legislators that are involved and watching. Representative England just arrived as well. Great, thank you, sir. Okay, with that, I'll have kind of an opening statement and talk about the meeting and how it's to operate today, and then we will get into the public hearing. I will go ahead and say that our proposed next meeting is Wednesday, October 23rd at 10:30, same room, same place. That will not be a public hearing. We have a public hearing once a year. Obviously, the public is invited and welcome to attend, but we will have specific people on that agenda that will be addressing us that day. So appreciate everyone being here today. So on behalf of the committee, the Joint Prison Oversight Committee and the legislature, we're here today as ordinary citizens. We are just like you, other than we have put ourselves up for elected office, and we're elected, and we are here to represent the citizens of the people of Alabama. So for us to do our job, we need to hear from the citizens of the people of Alabama, and that's why we're here today. As a reminder, some folks think that we can just go tomorrow and make changes immediately. That's not the way our system is designed. That's not the way it works. We are one of the three co-equal branches of government. We are the legislative branch, and our duties are to appropriate funds and to set long-term policy for the state. We call those laws. And when you put all those laws together in a book, we call it the Code of Alabama. So those are the two things that we are tasked with and we are to do. We do not deal with the day-to-day affairs of running government. That is left to the executive branch. The executive branch consisting of the governor, lieutenant governor, and on down. And that is very, very important for the discussions that we're going to have today. I know that there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, and that's okay. That is okay. What is not okay is if that passion and emotion moves toward aggression or disrespect, that kind of thing. That will not be tolerated. We are here today to listen and to help. And as you know, we are here as a result of a law that Representative England introduced and the legislature passed and the governor signed into law. And this is a requirement for us to have a public hearing. We have 4 meetings a year, and one of those meetings is this public hearing. Last year we had it in December, and that was too late, not too late, but late in the year to be doing the things that we needed to do going into legislative session. So this year we're having it earlier and give us more time going into legislative session. So based on from last year's meeting, we heard, we listened, and there were some things that we did. We passed, and the governor signed into law Act 2024-307. And I want to thank Governor Ivey and the Commissioner of Corrections and State Personnel Board and all of their staffs who helped us in a really short period of time work through the process, because the more people that are interested in a particular piece of legislation, the longer it takes to work through those issues. So everyone worked together with us and we passed that bill. What does that bill do? It gives the Commissioner of Corrections a lot more flexibility and accountability in his management team. And that is a good thing. So we did that. It adds a constituent services employee at each of the 14 major facilities and then a coordinator at the central office of those 14. It also expands the interaction of the Joint Prison Oversight Committee with DOC. And these are all three very positive. There's a few other things in the bill, but those things came out of this meeting last year. Is that everything that we should or need to do? Probably not, but it was a first step. And we will continue to go through that process. Okay, as we get started with the input, I would suggest strongly that you don't mention specific names, and that is to protect those people from whatever retribution or whatever could happen. So if you choose to mention your family member's name, remember that's on you, and we suggest you don't do that just to protect them. Also, I want you to know that every person that is on the list to speak today, the very last person has the same right as the very first person. So we're going to be very conscious of the time. And each person is going to be given 2 minutes. We have 20 speakers that are announced. And when we get to 10 seconds, I'm going to hold my hands up like this. Meaning doesn't mean stop. It means 10 seconds. And if you will, just wrap it up, and then we'll go from there. So thank you for that. We did have a cancellation. We may have some today. And we do have a cancellation list. So we will fill from that list as we have time available. Okay. I think I've covered most everything. I will reiterate, passion and emotion is okay. Beyond that is not. We did not have a problem with this last time, so I don't anticipate it today. But if we do, we have procedures in place. First, I will try to calm you down, try to get your attention, let you know that you're going outside of which should be tolerated. If that doesn't work, I will motion for security to come help you understand. And if that doesn't work, we'll just leave the room. The committee will leave the room. And we'll let things simmer down. We'll come back. And if it happens again, then we will the committee will move to another room, and one by one just bring in those who are on the list. We don't want to do that. You've all taken time to be here today, some traveling from distant places. Please be respectful of everyone else's right to address us. Okay. With that, we will go into are there any comments or questions from the committee as we move forward? All right. With that, we will move into the agenda. And I think most of the speakers are to my left at the front of the room. If you're not, when I'll call your name, if you will move there. And what I will do is I'll call the first speaker. While they're coming to the microphone, I will call the second speaker, so you'll know to be prepared, and maybe we can speed up the travel time and that kind of time it takes to get to the microphone. So, all right, all that's out of the way. So the first speaker on the list today is Latasha Williams. Okay, while she's coming, the second speaker is Barbara Turner. Ms. Turner, are you here? Will you identify yourself? Yes, come on up. I do not see or hear from Ms. Turner. Is there a Rebecca Crafton? Please identify yourself, Ms. Crafton. Do not see. There's a Tim Mathis. Tim Mathis is already. You'll be next. Okay, Ms. Williams, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you all for hearing me today, and I want to thank you personally for listening to my grievances earlier this summer. Today, my concern is with my son. He was moved from Limestone back to Donaldson, where he was raped at with the same in the same dorm with the guys who raped him. But I was told that he was moved from Limestone because he had an enemy there. But he has an enemy right where he's been moved. He was also given a 6-month visitation suspension because they say I didn't show up for the last visitation, but I went to the last visitation. They told me that my grandson couldn't have on shorts, so we went and changed clothes and we came back and they still told us no. So therefore they said that he was on a 6-month suspension because we did not show up, which is untrue. I'm pretty frustrated at a lot of things, but I just want to move through this because I don't know how open you are to change, or you're just doing things just because there's a trial coming up, but hopefully it is to improve the conditions of the prison and also make some changes with staff and cameras, because when it comes to someone defending themselves, the inmate will automatically be giving time for protecting themselves when there should be people, cameras, policies, rules, regulations, all these in place, because the major crime is going on with the staff at the prisons. The inmates pretty much run Donaldson Correctional Facility. There's a lot of gang activity, still a lot of drug activity, and yes, my son was on drugs. Are you stopping me? That's my
10 seconds.
Okay. I just want you to know God will put my son back together in front of those who broke him, and don't think it wasn't seen by God. He will not only receive and recover the blessings he's promised, but he will flourish. In the places where he felt broken, abandoned, and defeated, he will stand strong and victorious. And I just want to declare and decree that in the name of God.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, Mr. Mathis, while he's coming, the next speaker will be Rosalind Warren. Ms. Warren, will you identify yourself? Okay. Okay, Mr. Mathis.
Yes, sir. I'm here. My son, Chase Mathis, was placed into custody in 2016 from a car accident for a manslaughter charge. We had no idea at the time that took place it was going to turn into a death sentence under the hands of the ADOC. Chase went into the prison in a wheelchair from the accident. I had to fight the battle shortly after he went in because he was calling me he couldn't eat. He wasn't being fed because they took his wheelchair. He had no rehab. There are no kind of rehab facilities in these prisons for anyone that's handicapped. There's no handicap facilities. Nothing. I got that taken care of by making some phone calls to some senators and stuff. Extortion is rampant in their own families. I paid over $3,000 in money the month of April to help keep my child safe. Now, Chase did have an addiction problem, but you can't lock a drunk up in a liquor store and expect him to stay sober. It's not going to happen. The dope's worse in here than it is out on the road. I got a phone call June the 4th from the warden at Elmore, Pamela Hamilton. Conversation went something like this. I answered the phone. She said, "Mr. Mathis?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I have bad news for you." She said, "Chase is deceased." It was just that short, just that blunt. I went off on her, wanted to know where my son was, where his body was. "I can't tell you. He's being sent to a facility." I said, "What facility?" "Can't tell you." She said, "Call my office at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." 7:30 the next morning, I'm sitting in front of the prison doors. We finally had a conversation, got that taken. I also talked to DOC investigator, Don Favor. The information I was giving him from the report that was filed, Chase had talked to Lieutenant Jackie Pettaway and asked to be placed in protective custody because he was afraid for his life. He told Mr. Pettaway, who was threatening him, what it was over, and that if he wasn't protected, he would either have to harm someone or himself because he wasn't going to be raped and tortured. They moved him to Elmore the next day. I got off the phone at 8:30 that night with my son. He was dead at 8:55. So I have absolutely no faith in the ADOC, none. I'm going to be as nice as I can. I'm mad. I'm not going to get over this. I don't know if any of you live in this area. I know y'all transfers back and forth up here for everything, but I want you to keep your eyes open because you're about to see some billboards in the Montgomery area that some people in the government here are not going to like. As soon as my attorney clears me from any kind of liable charges from being put up, they're going to be up. There's some about Mr. Pettaway, there's going to be some about the ADOC, and there's some about Governor Ivey. And John Hamm is useless. I've called that man's office every day since June the 5th. Only thing I get is he's not available. So if y'all know anything about him drawing a check from the state of Alabama, he needs to have his salary cut because he ain't never in his office.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. All right, as Ms. Warren is approaching, is Ms. Carla Tenney in attendance? Carla Tenney. Verna Smith. Verna Smith. Okay. Okay, Ms. Warren.
Okay, greetings. We are well aware of the proliferation of problems that plague the Alabama prison system. I'm a firm believer in rehabilitation, and not only for the residents of ADOC, but also for the victims and for the people who work there. I have family who work for ADOC, and if you work for ADOC for 25 years to retire, then you've essentially served 8 years in prison, okay? So, but we also look at the victims because most of these people who are incarcerated, they're not in there because they are singing in the choir too loud, right? So they've done something that's deemed that they can't be a part of society. So I believe in restorative justice to promote healing for the victims. And I also think that it makes the offender accountable. But when we look at, but if anybody who's punished for a crime, then the punishment is to be removed from society, not to be assaulted, not to be killed, and not to be treated humanely. So the most important thing that we all have, the most important thing is time. So that's our most valuable commodity. So if a person is incarcerated in Alabama prisons, then I feel like that we should use their time wisely and constructively. So I'll give you an example. Before I was born, my dad was incarcerated for armed robbery and assault. But my dad, and this was like in the early 70s, and when my father went to prison, he was just a thug, just a really bad type of a person, right? But because my dad went to prison early and he was rehabilitated as far as education, he made that a precedence for us. We were expected to do homework and education was important. And so because of that instance with my father, then me and all my siblings, and there are 4 of us, we all have college degrees and no one has a criminal record. So I believe in the benefits of rehabilitation. I also say, so if we look at what Norway is doing, is making sense. They treat people humanely. How can we treat people like animals and expect them to act humanely? The University of California is a MEN project. They're implementing the Norway system in several states in Alabama and several states in the United States, and their success is tremendous. They're reducing assaults, everything, and I think that something like that would definitely work in Alabama.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. As Ms. Smith is making her way up, would Michelle McLeod, okay, it's right here. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Hello. I do
Hello.
appreciate being given 2 minutes to speak. I have so many loved ones in the custody of ADOC that it's hard to narrow down my concerns in 2 minutes. So I've chosen to speak on what's most dire, death and accountability. These prisons are drug-infested slums, and where you have drugs and destruction, you have death. Most people in prison are there because they have committed crimes and they are being held accountable for their actions. I am asking that everyone be held to that same standard of accountability, whether it be the governor, commissioner, warden, staff, or contracted officials. A lot of these deaths are preventable, but the people making the decision lack basic care and compassion for human life. There is a case after case of inmates asking to be moved to more secure dorms or to be placed in lockup for safety reasons, and they're being denied. There are cases where staff is deliberately placing inmates in situations where they know they will be assaulted and extorted simply because they're upset for whatever reason. There are homeless people in prison sleeping on the floors and being walked over by staff. There are staff refusing to administer life-saving treatments in some overdose cases simply because they don't want to touch the inmates. There are people walking around with life-threatening illnesses being ignored or denied treatment until people flood ADOC with calls and emails. There are prisoners being denied food and basic hygienic supplies and being forced to do whatever to get them. The living conditions are horrific and unsanitary, which promotes a breeding ground for disease, not to mention the fact that there's no air conditioner for most prisoners. These people are being allowed to run the biggest drug pen in the state of Alabama, from the wardens to the mental health workers, to the commissioner, to the staff, to the sergeants, to the lieutenants, to the guards, and whoever else. Meanwhile, every other death reported from ADOC is ruled an overdose. It's alarming. We all have seen the news. We've all watched the videos. We all know people in these situations. So my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. As Ms. McLeod, is McLeod?
Cloud.
Okay. If you would hold up one second.
Okay.
Is Matthew Charles in attendance? Okay. You'll be next. Go ahead, Ms. McLeod.
Yes, my name is Michelle McLeod, and I'm the sister, and I'm the sister of the inmates. Since I can't say his name, I didn't know that. But he is 49 years old, and he's been incarcerated ever since he was 19 years old. During that time, he have paid dearly for his crime, and will continue to pay. He suffered the loss of his only son, and had to grieve privately. He has completed the HVAC program, earning several certificates from J.F. Ingram College. He worked for the Childersburg Housing Authority for $2 per day. While at Childersburg Work Release Center, he interacted with people in the community daily, and he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. He proved he can easily rejoin society. Keith was in a vehicle accident while in work release, and now suffer from chronic back pain as a result. Keith doesn't have any disciplinary issue and is not a threat to anyone. Keith is currently at the North Alabama Work Center and was earning $2 per day, picking up trash from the dangerous highways. My concern is that if Keith is good enough to work in society earning $2 per day, but can't be trusted to come home where he has a supportive and loving family, we're ready to help him, but he's constantly being denied parole and doesn't understand why, and neither does his family, because he's doing everything that's required of him, including working in public with limited restriction. He needs to be home as a free taxpaying citizen. Keith Bernard, I'm gonna say, yeah, excuse me, but yeah, I don't want to, but. And we just really concerned. I mean, every time he come up, it's just, and he haven't done nothing, and he's been up 5 times, and he just started being denied, and he's, going to school, doing what he's supposed to do, and we just don't understand why and what's the problem.
You may have said, would you repeat his underlying charge, the original?
His underlying charge was murder with the possibility of parole.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. McLeod.
You're so welcome.
Mr. Charles, is Karen Gann in attendance? Okay, you'll be next. Mr. Charles.
Thank you. Dear Chambliss and honorable members of this committee, my name is Matthew Charles. I was sentenced to federal prison for 35 years for nonviolent offenses. I served 22 years before becoming the first beneficiary of the First Step Act signed by President Donald Trump in 2018. I was honored to attend the State of the Union as his guest in 2019. Since then, I've traveled the country speaking with state and federal lawmakers about my experience and the need for prison and sentence reform. I testify on behalf of FAM, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that advocates sentencing and prison policies that are individualized, fair, protect public safety, and preserve families. We thank this committee for its leadership in passing SB 322 in response to the horrific experiences of Alabama families. We thank Governor Ivey for signing it. This new law creates 15 new positions, as Chair Chambliss stated earlier. It also standardized inquiry forms, and they have to respond. And it gives this committee a staff person to help this committee with prison oversight. We ask that this committee continue to monitor these things closely so that they will be implemented and that every prong is met. SB 322 would not have prevented many of the deaths and horror stories that we hear today. However, it is a step in a series of steps that are necessary and not a resting point. We have two recommendations. One, that the committee use the new staffer and corrections liaison to create new correctional line staff, to create ways for correctional line staff and incarcerated people to communicate with you directly. You could hold a series of closed-door listening sessions, one for families, correctional line staff, incarcerated people, formerly incarcerated people, advocacy groups, and stakeholders, such as Bureau of Prisons, Colette Peters did on a federal level. Second, you can hold a study session on independent prison oversight, and we will be happy to facilitate that expert testimony on how this could be scaled and managed here in Alabama. Alabama is ripe for independent prison oversight, and we think should look to the federal legislation, act as a model. We appreciate you for considering our views.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Representative England.
You said independent oversight. What do you mean by that?
In other words, independent oversight is actually whatever, like the Federal Bureau of Prisons. In other words, it is somebody outside of the Federal Bureau of Prisons that would be looking in on what is taking place in the Federal Bureau of Prisons or in the state of Alabama, because oftentimes when you have an agency monitoring and checking itself, it don't truly check itself. So that's the reason we believe in independent, outside people looking at the situation that are not tied to, for any reason, that whatever it is that they're monitoring.
Thank you.
Yes, and in your packet is the information that Mr. Charles submitted. Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Thank you, Chair Chambliss.
Okay, Karen Gann, if you would make your way. Is Joseph Hyatt in attendance? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Gann. You have 2 minutes.
All right. I'd like to know, can I leave a package to our packet for y'all to go through?
Sure.
Okay. My big concern is my son ended up the way that Mr. Ward's son ended up because of how dangerous it is. But my son has no criminal background. He's an Army veteran. He was born on life support, so he's already got the main artery and vein cut off on the right side of his neck. Don't have a pulse beat there. His blood has to do a U-turn. And he's not supposed to be around respiratory infections. So he has been exposed to anything and everything you could possibly be exposed to that I spent a whole lifetime of his keeping him away from, just so my baby that had 8% chance of living at birth could still be alive. For personal vendetta, I guess because my son saw a fire, or this is the only thing we can figure out. He saw a fire, and it happened to be an assistant DA in the district we live in, and he was in trouble for embezzling money and $300,000 from children's accounts that he was over. And a judge from that area came down to Tallapoosa County for the first time ever and put my son away for 25 years without parole. No good time. And so, you know, I've tried everything I can. I got almost $18,000 in lawyers and stuff, you know, and still you can't get nowhere because, you know, once they put you in there, they throw the key away. But, you know, everything comes with punishment. You get a ticket, you have to pay a fine. You don't mind mom and daddy, you get grounded. But when you get hung up in this system right here, you're stuck for life. You might as well just look at it for life. And then I don't understand why they give you so many times, because I read this in the paper, that people come up for parole, you know, and then they're denied. That's a lot of money wasted, it seems like, if they pass out the yearly conduct thing. It should have on there whether they been behaving or not, I would think.
Yes,
And so that should narrow it down,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
and save you some money maybe.
Right. Thank you so much for being here today.
All right, and where can I leave that packet?
I'm sorry.
How can I leave that
Just
packet?
leave it right here on the dais, and we'll get it.
Okay.
Okay, Joseph Hyatt. Next will be Bobby White. Bobby, yeah, okay.
Last time I was here was in December. I
Yes,
spoke
sir.
to y'all. Some of you might remember, some of you not.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm here. Let everybody know. I'm here because my nephew Christopher was beat to death in Staten last September. The individual who did it, they got him. You know, it don't matter. He's not getting out of prison. But my concern is you guys and madam. Last time I was here, what have you guys, I mean, you gave the address of things take time. We get that. We got a whole bunch of people here that's got time too, you know, with all their loved ones. Guys, y'all are the oversight committee. Oversight, which means you overlooking what's going on in the prisons. We got 150 deaths so far. Now, some of them are murders, some of them are drug-related. Your prison system, I don't see where y'all are doing anything different. Y'all passed a bill. I got mothers I see, I mean, communicate with a lot of the advocates that it's supposed to be a person to notify, you know, to relay, a liaison. And it's like Christopher, it took him 5 days to contact his family. They had all the correct information administratively. But guys, y'all got to act quick. I don't know what walls y'all are up against. Y'all are up here drawing a salary. You obviously have a job to do. A lot of us are mad. We're really upset because, like you said, it's an emotional issue when it comes to a loved one. Everybody in this room has a loved one that they'd go to battle. Yes, sir. But I haven't seen nothing change. The gentleman on the end over here by Mr. Ingram, they claimed he fell asleep last time, but he's looking down whatever he's doing. I'm not trying to point you out, but I did.
Sir,
Okay.
sir, that's out of order.
I know, okay, I
It's
apologize.
just out of order, so
But thank you.
thank you.
Clean up your house.
Sir, if you want to be out of order, we'll leave you off the list next time, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Good morning to
Mr. White, Dr. White, if
Yes,
you would
sir.
hold 1 second.
Okay.
Dr. Elizabeth Hancock. Okay, you'll be next. Okay, Dr. White.
Okay, good morning. My name is Pastor Robert White. I want to say good morning to Chairperson and to the committee. And I'm representing a group of pastors that are here from around the state of Alabama. And if they could just stand or wave their hand, that would be good. And one of the things that we've done is we wanted to come and offer some solutions and some suggestions to the problems that are been very well stated. Number one of the things that we have talked about and would like to suggest is that all of the dorms be structured. And I know that there are new prisons that are being built and the dynamics are changing, but there's some dormitories that are what's called not structured. So the occupants have nothing to do, they have no regiment, they have no type of activities to do, and that causes a problem because those persons who are incarcerated that are a part of programs, structured programs, tend not to recidivate, and they really value their participation in programs. So we're looking at having at least all of the dorms structured, or those, or a greater majority of the dorms being structured. We also, as ministers, want better access to the prisons because we have programs that we would like to institute. We've developed, I'm an educator and other pastors are educators as well, and we've developed training modules, education modules that we would love to bring to prisons to help, with the matriculation and the development of those people that are there. We also want more opportunities for ministry as far as religious services are concerned, because that plays a major role in the institutional integrity and the well-being of both the staff and those who are incarcerated. So we wanted to offer, those 3 suggestions, because those things that could be implemented very simply. And I would also say that what we're dealing with is, in a lot of instances, the rape is not just arbitrary, it's targeted. And you have a race bias also component to the rape and the homelessness. So there are different factors that we need to put into place, the homelessness that are in prison, and we would also suggest that there be significant psychological counseling for the people who have been victims of trauma, because we are traumatizing people, and we believe that if you're not a drug addict when you come into prison, you shouldn't be one when you get out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as Dr. Hancock makes her way, Shante Roney, did I say that right? Okay. Okay, you'll be next. All right, Dr. Hancock.
Hello. Who do you want to come out of the prisons here in Alabama? You have heard today about the negative conditions within the Alabama prison system, including the dangerous and health-threatening conditions for both the residents and the staff. A hint, new mega prisons aren't the answer. We're entrusting the care of vulnerable people to the state, and the state is failing. As someone who got their start working in the juvenile justice system and the Alabama Department of Youth Services, I know we can do better. Considering we're in the Bible Belt, it is sad to know we are considered one of the worst prison systems, not only in America, but in the world. Alabama doesn't have to be considered the worst prison system, though. Furthermore, we don't have to have our inability to demonstrate our supposed Christian values to those entrusted in the state's care highlighted for the world to see. Does the Bible not command us to treat those in prison with care, helping and teaching them? ADOC states that they do this, yet more than 169 people have died this year alone, and it's only July. Who is it that we want coming out of our prisons? Certainly not someone worse off than when they went in. There are areas that ADOC could be working on improving and implementing because, again, who do we want coming out of our prisons? Behavioral incentives play a great role in improving the conditions and making the overall prison system safer. ADOC will tell you that they provide rehabilitation to those they hold in their custody, yet they do not provide this to everyone, nor does ADOC implement evidence-based rehabilitation, including counseling. Additionally, while ADOC has the behavior incentive dorms that were spoken of, such as the Honor and Faith dorms, with built-in programming, this programming isn't actually being implemented as designed at any of the prisons, losing its effectiveness. Lastly, a strong incentive that has shown a great positive impact in other states is visitation. Improving visitation to support family and expanding visitation to include family visits has the potential impact not only on the incarcerated individual, but the family as well. And safety-wise, it's a great behavioral incentive. I leave you with the reminder that if we treat people as animals, then we can expect animalistic behavior. So I'm asking you, who do you want to come out of the Alabama prison system?
Thank you, Dr. Hancock.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Roney, if you will hold 1 second. Is Pam Moser? She's here. Okay, you'll be next. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Roney. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Shante Roney. I'm here to speak on behalf of my brother, DeAndre Eugene Roney, and how the Alabama DOC failed him in several occasions while in their custody. He requested a transfer in March and April to another camp or a dorm because of the corruption at Donaldson Correctional Facility. DeAndre reached out on numerous times in the past months to his family asking us to request a transfer or for him to be moved to another dorm. We even asked could he be placed in lockup until his release date. We made several calls requesting wellness checks. We tried to speak with the warden about a transfer or just to have him placed in another dorm, but we was always told to leave a message only to never get a call back. Before COVID, DeAndre was denied parole. We was told he had less than 5 years, so they would rather he EOS. At the parole hearing, we expressed our concerns about his health and if he could be released with the leg monitor or moved to another camp so he could get proper medical attention for the injuries he had sustained 2 years prior, but we was denied. DeAndre was added to a list to be released during the COVID and again overlooked. A huge transfer was done at Donaldson in April, but he wasn't a part of that either. The week before DeAndre was killed, several calls was made for wellness checks, and on June the 7th, a Lieutenant Murray assured us that he would go back there and check on him or have him moved to another dorm. We mentioned he had an issue with the inmate that was trying to assault him, and 3 days prior, he failed because the knife broke. He tried to stick, the same inmate who killed him tried to stick him in his head and the knife broke. On Saturday, June 8th, around noon, DeAndre called home and asked that we speak with someone in charge because no one came back there to see him or move him. And 2 hours later, we received a phone call that my brother was stabbed in his head and in his back, and that he was left outside and that inmates had to get him and bring him inside the facility. I feel the DOC should have done more to protect DeAndre. Now all we have is memories and no answers and broken hearts. They stabbed him at Donaldson, and they told us he had no property and nothing but state-issued property. The facility expressed no condolences or has not called at all to let us know what happened. So at this point, all we're saying is to make, I'm sorry. We know he had pictures and legal property, papers, if nothing else. No calls from the facility with express condolences or just what happened. All the information we have is what we got of his final days from concerned inmates.
Thank you, Ms. Roney.
All right, thank you for listening.
Yes, question by Representative England.
When did that happen?
He was killed on June 8th. He was part of that. It was like 4 inmates that was killed that weekend.
What year, this year?
June 8th, 2024 of this year. And when we called down there to ask about it, they told us to call back Monday between 8 and 5. So, I mean, we just want justice and answers if possible.
What's his, before you go, what's his full name?
His name is DeAndre Eugene Roney, R-O-N-E-Y.
DeAndre Eugene Roney.
Yes.
And to this point, you haven't been given any information?
No, he was going to be released November the 6th. He was EOS in November the 6th, and his birthday would have been 40 November the 30th. We've been waiting all this time and saving money for him to be productive, and we had to bury him with that money. So we just want answers. We don't have no one has called and told us anything. We just got a knock on the door from the chaplain saying that he was deceased, but nothing else.
All right, we're going.
Sorry, Ms. Roney.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
But we're going to try to help you get those answers.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Moser. Next would be Michaela Martin. Would Michaela Martin identify herself? Mary Lynch. Mary Lynch. Amy Cobb, canceled. Eddie Burkhalter. Okay. You'll be next, Mr. Burkhalter. Okay, Ms. Moser.
Hi. Hello, lady and gentlemen. My name is Pam Moser. First, I would like to thank Senator Chambliss for SB 322. I am so appreciative to be listened to by all of you that were here in December. My hopes are that this will help families to have more options when things happen to loved ones that are incarcerated, whether that involves injury, illness, hospitalization, or death. It has been just over 9 months since my son, Brian Rigsby, died at State Correctional Facility. You have heard Brian's story, how he was savagely beaten and did not receive care. An investigation was completed. His autopsy was presented to the grand jury, who determined that no further action was needed, was required. At this point, I have not been able to find out what that investigation showed. I just can't believe someone doesn't know what happened. I have reached out to ADOC multiple times for answers. I have filled out and mailed their very vague request form and sent the $20 processing fee. I am learning to live with the loss of my dear child. I am having trouble, however, with the fact that someone could hurt so badly and just not receive care. It seems incredibly unfair that people like Brian, many who have mental illness and substance use problems, are constantly held accountable, but the government that was entrusted with their care when they died get off scot-free. On the way down here this morning, I read Brian's autopsy report that I got in the mail yesterday, and there's so many inconsistencies. I mean, it's just, I just want answers. I want justice for my son. And I plan on pursuing and trying to get some of those answers. Some of the autopsy report, I don't even know what it means, so I don't really want to go into that part of it. But, I'm sitting over there listening, y'all. I mean, how can we spend days listening to families tell these stories over and over? And, I mean, how has it gotten to where this is acceptable in our society, that this is how we can treat humans? And someone mentioned earlier, when people commit a crime, they lose their freedom. They don't lose their humanity. They don't lose their right as a human being. So I encourage you to continue to listen to us and continue to make changes. And thank you again for listening today.
Thank you, Ms. Moser. Mr. Burkhalter and Governor Siegelman, you'll be next.
Members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Eddie Burkhalter, a researcher at Alabama Appleseed. Because the committee frequently discusses ADOC staffing and violence, I'd like to share some of my research in those areas. In 2017, during the Braggs mental health lawsuit, Judge Myron Thompson ordered the Alabama Department of Corrections to hire an additional 2,000 officers. In 2019, then Commissioner Jeff Dunn stated his administration was, quote, launching a robust workforce development program that continues to attract an increased number of qualified correctional officer candidates. 7 years since Judge Thompson issued the order and nearly 5 years since Dunn's statement, there have been a zero net gain in correctional staff, according to a March filing in the lawsuit. The staff vacancy rate at major facilities is at 61.3%, with the department, quote, more than 2,000 officers short of fulfilling the numbers required by their own staffing analysis. Large numbers of employees are also being fired. Records requests show 366 staff were fired between 2018 and 2023. 134 were charged with work-related crimes, ranging from smuggling contraband to assault and murder. I don't think it's a stretch to say that taxpayers of Alabama deserve more information about how ADOC is going to staff a 4,000-bed prison, given these facts. The legislature wisely increased pay, and correctional officers can quickly earn higher salaries than teachers and police officers. Still, existing prisons remain inadequately staffed. This, along with the constant presence of contraband, drives the violence. Last year, Alabama prisons, there were a record 325 deaths. Of those, at least 10 were homicides, 13 suicides, 89 overdose deaths. That record year of deaths followed another record year in 2022, and this year could exceed that grim record. Already, there have been 161 deaths as of June 20th. ADOC still makes the occasional arrests for contraband, both among citizens and staff, but with overdoses continuing to soar, it's clear that our prisons are made filled with deadly drugs and contraband that drive the violence. Alabama's overdose mortality rate in prisons last year of 435 per 100,000 was 20 times the national rate. Today, you've heard from families of some of those who've died. I know how hard these heartbreaking stories are to hear because my colleagues and I hear from them daily. From your words and actions, I know you're listening, you care, and will continue to take substantial actions to address this crisis. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here today. Okay, as Governor Siegelman comes up, is there a mini rush in attendance? Mini rush. Okay, you'll be next. Go ahead, Governor. You have 2 minutes.
First of all, I thank you because I know that the stories that you've heard this morning have touched your hearts the way those stories have touched mine. I'm here both as a lawyer to offer some constructive risk management advice, but also as a former governor to offer one small positive solution. This week, we saw the unprecedented action by the United States House Oversight Committee asking for the resignation of the head of the United States Secret Service. I say this just to remind you of both the responsibility that you have and the power that you have to make change. As a former governor, I had the privilege of recruiting and asking Mike Haley to be my prison commissioner. And almost on day one, he came to me and he said, "Governor, I've got an idea. I need your help. I need your support. I want to introduce faith-based honor dorms into Alabama prisons." He said, "This will provide a safe place for men who want to and women who want to work harder and make a better life for themselves. It'll offer a way to reduce the possibility of violence and also increase the likelihood of a reduction in recidivism." So he set out on an experiment and opened honor dorms, and I think in all of our prisons. I know he opened one at Holman, and if I remember correctly, they got a barn outside of the prison walls and converted it into living space, but found inmates who were compatible and would live up to this code of honor that will allow them to participate in this valuable program. I know that these programs have been introduced around the country as well, and I think it was Maine that converted one of their isolation cells, the solitary confinement cells, into, not cells, but units, into a honors dorm where they now have inmates seeking PhDs, are all engaged in some kind of academic work or vocational training. The important part of honor dorms is that it is a safe place, and it is a place where it requires less staff because of the quality of people who are there in these safe places, who are working on their own projects, on their own time to improve their lives so that they can at least have the hope and belief that if they work hard enough and long enough, that they can find a path out of this dark tunnel that they find themselves in.
Governor,
So-
I've allowed you to go way over.
Oh,
So
sorry,
if
I apologize.
If you would, go ahead and go to that second recommendation that you had quickly.
Well, the first recommendation is that the risk management, and I know that the judge and others who are lawyers understand the concept of vicarious liability, and I'm not suggesting that this organization have civil liability for what goes on in prisons, but I do suggest that, and wanted to remind you of the responsibility and the power that you have by bringing to light the example of the removal of the head of the Secret Service. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Okay, Minnie Rush. All right, you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Rosa Williams, and this is my sister, Minnie Wright. My family and I have traveled from as far as Georgia, D.C., and Texas today to advocate and plead for the safety and well-being of our brother. My brother has been incarcerated since the fall of 2014, first at Elmore Correctional Facility and now at Bibb County Correctional Facility. For weeks, I have pondered how to convey the depths of our emotions, fears, and hopes in this meeting. How can I make someone understand who my brother is, how important he is to us, how much we love him, and how desperately we want him to be safe. Let me tell you about my brother. He is the second oldest of 4 siblings. He is quiet-natured, reserved, and giving. He graduated in the top 20% of his class and briefly attended the University of Florida. In 2007, our mother had a massive heart attack, and my brother was there to administer CPR. My mother unfortunately did not survive. This traumatic event triggered psychotic behavior, and he was later diagnosed with schizophrenia while in prison. We have battled for years to get my brother help, but the system is not set up to help the mentally ill. Once my brother arrived at Elmore Correctional Facility, he started to use drugs and began having a drug addiction, which he didn't have prior to going to prison. This dangerous combination exacerbates his cognitive dissonance, making it even harder for him to function and protect himself in such a hostile environment. Our family has contacted the warden, Alabama DOC, Alabama Appleseed, and countless entities that have been willing to help and listen to our plea for our brother. However, he has still not received the rehabilitation that is desperately needed. My brother's mild temperament, kindness, and predominantly his mental health have unfortunately made him a target. He has endured extortion, rape, stabbings, and most recently had his teeth knocked out during a physical altercation. Our family has been contacted multiple times with threats on his life unless we send money. One horrifying instance involved him being stabbed in the shower. Thankfully, he survived, but each day brings a renewed fear that it could be his last. Over the years, we have watched my brother deteriorate. My sister, who is a nurse practitioner, and I, a clinical pharmacist, truly believe and know that at this point, my brother needs a safe, drug-free environment, drug rehab, and proper titration of his current medication regimen for schizophrenia. I stand here today pleading for his life. Please understand that our greatest hope is for my brother to come home alive. We are asking for change today so that he and other prisoners, especially the mentally ill, receive the care that they need to survive and to one day again become productive citizens in society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Forgot to call out ahead of time, is Miss Tamika Hayes here? Okay, you'll be next. Cindy Hamilton. Some of these may not be here because this is the substitute list. Cindy Hamilton. Okay, Ms. Hayes.
Good morning.
2 minutes.
I'm here on behalf of my son, Michael Cooper. He's serving a 20-year sentence. My first issue was in 2016. He tore his ACL while playing basketball at Holman Correctional Facility. A riot broke out, which I was aware of, and was contacted by an inmate via cell phone with pictures of my son beaten, skin scraped off his face, on his back, his arms, and I was advised that he was assaulted by your CERT team. My question to the inmate was, why was he assaulted? They had taken the inmates out on the basketball court to get, I guess, control of the riot, and my son was handcuffed to the front because he was on crutches. The gentleman from the CERT team proceeded to ask my son what in the explicit language made him different from the other inmates that he was handcuffed to the front. My son proceeded to get smart back. He was then, the crutches were kicked from under him. He was dragged across the concrete of the basketball court where I had pictures that I gave to the news where he was beat and assaulted and placed in lockup. When I called the prison, they informed me that that was not true, that my son was just fine, that nothing had happened to him. So when I emailed the warden the pictures and said, well, explain to me why my son looks like this, his concern was, how did I get the pictures? Not if my son was okay or what condition he was in. I was told that that wasn't true. I then contacted NBC 15 News, done an interview, got with a nonprofit, did a riot in front of Holman Prison because nobody would allow me to see my son or would tell me if he was okay. I then contacted Representative Napoleon Bracey, which he connected me to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which finally got me some answers that my son was assaulted and injured by the CERT team for no reason because he had a torn ACL.
10 seconds.
Okay, well, my concern is that y'all are more concerned in protecting the officers than more concerned about the inmates. You know, my son was beaten and placed in lockup where he wasn't able to call me and let me know if he was okay. And then when I called the warden, I was told a lie. My concern is, when are y'all gonna stop talking about what you're gonna do? I understand that things take time, but we need more action and less talking.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Cindy Hamilton. Next will be Sabrina Gore. Sabrina Gore. Laura Farmer. Laura Farmer. Lauren Ferrano. Ms. Ferrano, you'll be the last speaker. Okay, Ms. Hamilton.
You guys set aside, I think, $19 million in funds for legal fees for these corrupt officers. And it's not enough, because the state is literally protecting one of the largest illegal drug rings in the country. They are murderers. They're protecting murderers. They are protecting drug dealers. They are protecting extortionists. And not many people can come up here and tell you guys how many thousands and thousands of dollars that they are sending to keep their loved one alive, because they're terrified, because the threats are real. They're absolutely terrified to come speak to you guys, to speak to anyone, because there is almost 170 deaths, and we're only in the middle of July. These officers are corrupt. They're bad people. Most all of them. The ones that aren't, they just turn their head. They're just as guilty, because no decent human could witness what they witness on a daily basis and go to sleep at night. It is wrong. It is not okay. My son's home, but he's not okay. I'm dealing with the aftermath, but he's alive, and that's all I can say. These mothers and these wives, sisters, they have lost their businesses. Some of them don't even have power. They don't have money for groceries. They have lost their car for sending every penny they get into this system, trying to keep their loved one alive. And then, well, they're on drugs. Well, some of them are. Drugs shouldn't be there. It's simple. The drugs are not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be rehabilitating them. Commissioner Ham stands up here and he makes it all sound like rainbows and butterflies. Well, how many deaths occur in lockup? Because you can have 10 new prisons, and with this same corrupt staff, nothing's gonna change. The people are still gonna die. They're gonna die in those concrete cells in lockup. I mean, something has to change. It's been serious, but now it's like, you can't call, they lie. They just lie. They don't care. There was an incident at Bullock with one of my good mother friends and her son. He was assaulted, and by someone who had assaulted 10 other people within the last week. Same person. That person never gets in trouble. It's like the Twilight Zone of ADOC. Everything's kind of backwards. There's a handbook that no one follows. It should be shredded. And they said, oh, well, when the gate opens, if he needs help, he can come out. They don't check on him. They don't care.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
Medical is non-existent. It's like obsolete.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Next will be Ms. Lauren Ferrano, and she will be our last speaker today.
You could just give me a minute to...
Sure. Take your time.
I'm gonna lift up the chair. I'd like to start by saying that there are a number of people in this room who signed up and were put on a wait list, and they still want to talk to you. And if you could spare a few extra minutes, I would encourage you to listen to them as well. Let's begin with who's not in this room and who needs to be. Commissioner Ham? No? Okay, Commissioner Ham's not
Commissioner Ham had a medical procedure and is not able to be here today. His staff is here today.
here. Okay, the parole board needs to be here because they are absolutely a part of the problem.
They were invited.
They weren't invited?
They were invited.
Were invited. Okay, so the parole board was invited.
Let me it may have been a little late. It was about 30 days ago when I invited them, and I understand now that they probably already had everything scheduled, so
Yeah.
that's on me. I will get them an invitation earlier next time.
Okay, so they're paid $150,000 a year with their salary and benefits. And we know that at least one of them, Lee Wathney, simply puts a rubber stamp on every case. She granted 6 paroles last summer, the entire summer, 6. Ivy, Governor Ivy should be here because she's absolutely a part of the problem. She's chosen ineffective leaders.
If the audience will please refrain from applause, because that takes away time from her speaking.
Steve Marshall is absolutely a part of the problem, and I wouldn't expect him to be here because
They have a representative here today.
I do know that they have a representative here. He is in the habit of sending representatives rather than himself because he's too busy doing whatever he's doing in New York or D.C. He never showed up for the study group meetings, but conveniently was there to make sure that everything failed.
If you want to talk about the DOC and what we can do to help, that's fine. If you want to talk about individuals and personal, that is out of order for this forum.
I would like to point out that you do have much more power than you say you do. We begin with a reminder that you guys can't do anything, but the only thing that you did—
That is not what I said. With all due respect, that is not what I said.
You passed a bill last session that will spend roughly $1 million to create liaison positions for the DOC. Those liaisons will be informing people that their loved ones are dead or dying. What about stopping the death and stopping the dying? Let's talk about the wasted money. We have spent lots of money, we being taxpayers, have spent lots of money trying to stop cell phones from operating in the prison system. I understand that that's connected with extortion and that's a problem. However, if we think for a second that blocking some cell phones is going to stop the drugs from coming in, it would be comical if not so many people were dying. As long as officers are walking through those doors, drugs are coming in with them. We also spent $1 million on a special session for you all to pass a $1 billion prison plan. Originally, the $1 billion prison plan covered 2 prisons, but now it only covers 1, maybe. That prison is not going to be ready until 2026. We need something before then. The only thing that this legislature has passed that I can see is bills that increase punishment or that do little Band-Aid jobs like the Liaison Commission. Anything that requires you to put your neck out and talk about why the prisons are so overcrowded, talk about what it would be to have parole oversight, to actually demand that people follow data-driven solutions, that never comes through. That never seems to make it to Governor Ivey's desk. So I would like to end by asking each of you, when is the last time that you spoke to someone who is incarcerated? We can start at either end.
We're not going to do that. If you want to finish your comments, we'll entertain that. I have allowed you to go over time. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up.
Okay, well, that's all I would like to do with my time is hear from you, this Oversight Committee, about what you are doing to make sure that you're prepared for the upcoming session, that you are informed by the people who are most impacted, and having one meeting a year where you allow people to speak for 2 minutes is grossly inadequate to convey what we need to
It's
convey.
more than we've ever had. So it is a step in the right direction.
Thank you.
With that, are there any comments from members of the committee or legislators before we wrap up? Senator Figures.
I will wait for the committee members first.
I don't see anybody. Representative England.
I think the chair will probably do the same thing, but I also want to extend my gratitude and thanks for everybody showing up, being here. I know it feels like there's nothing happening. I also know it feels hopeless at times, but I can guarantee you that your presence, your emails, your stories, your letters have definitely changed things. And I'll give you just some small examples. Last time we had this meeting, no one from the department, no one showed up. They're here today. We got several thousand emails with pictures and videos and so forth attached to them. And as a result, we understand how difficult it is, how non-transparent some of the government agencies are. And although I feel some of the same frustration because a lot of the things that ideas and bills and so forth that have been sponsored to create some of this oversight and some of the answers and solutions that we believe that we haven't passed. We did pass a bill this session to start the process of trying to give something to people when they try to call and find out about their loved ones. So I just want to assure you that what you're doing is making a huge difference. May not feel like it at times, but it is. And I'm also saying that because I want to encourage you to not just to continue doing it, but to do more, push harder, create more accountability. Make sure that people cannot continue to hide from the grim reality that our prison system is unconstitutionally inhumane, and we need to do more. So I'm going to continue to encourage you to contact anybody to let them know what's going on. Because the worst thing you want us to do is to say nobody said anything. So I thank you for being here, and keep fighting. Thank you.
Representative Hill.
Well, I want to echo at least some of the things that Mr. England just said. You know, we have three branches of government. Most of y'all know this. We got a legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. The legislative branch of government primarily is a budgeting entity. That is the constitutional mandate for the Alabama legislature, budgets. We pass budgets. A large percentage of our general fund budget goes to the Department of Corrections. Some of the things that we have done, I hear what Mr. England says, and I understand it. We have allocated money to build a new prison. We need more. There's no question that's accurate. We have allocated money. We have allocated money for facilities like Perry County, Shelby County, that prepare people for release. And I realize those are limited numbers, but it does put some people in there to get us to do that. It allows for sanctions for individuals rather than putting them back in prison, to sanction them for shorter periods of time in those facilities. We have allowed DOC to hire outside people outside of their normal chain of command for wardens, which I think is a good step in the right direction. We have allowed DOC to employ personnel to inform folks, to give you some type of ombudsman toward that committee, toward the DOC. I appreciate the fact that DOC here, whoever said they ought to be here, they're right. DOC ought to be here. Pardons and paroles ought to be here. Our executive branches of government ought to be here to hear what you have to say. We have increased pay for correctional officers in an attempt. Someone mentioned the fact that we were woefully inadequate in the numbers of correctional officers. That's true. What we can do from the legislative point of view, though, is offer incentives, and the only way we do that is financially. We have allowed judges to split sentences, which is not going to mean much to a lot of y'all, but used to when a judge revoked someone, they revoked them for the bulk of the sentence, the entirety of the rest of the sentence. Now they can resplit within the split. So, folks, I'm with Mr. England. You are making a difference. Is it a quick difference? Is it as quick as you'd like? Probably not. But remember this. The legislative branch of government, which is what we are, what you're looking at, we do not direct the day-to-day operation of the Department of Correction or the Board of Pardons and Paroles. They are under the executive branch of government. We are certainly, we can offer suggestions. We can do some things that perhaps call certain things to their attention. But the day-to-day operation of our prisons, the day-to-day operations of the parole board are not supervised. They are not directed by the legislative branch of government. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other members? Senator Figures.
I'm very sorry. Miss Betty was supposed to be on the list, and I apologize for being out of order, but her son died in DOC custody. If all of us in the room agree to not allow any other speakers to speak, could we please let Miss Betty have her 2 minutes?
Is there any objection from the committee? No objection. Please proceed.
I apologize.
Remind us your name.
Good morning. My name is Betty Martin. I'm from North Alabama. I'm here to speak for my son, Derek Martin. July 2023 was my last visit with my son, my last 2 hugs at Limestone Correctional Facility. August, he called and said he was transferred to Elmore due to his custody level dropping. My heart sank because it's no secret, the further south you go, the worse the prisons are. During his stay at Elmore, he was extorted and beat. He got staph infection, which turned into MRSA on his leg, which was treated, but he was still getting beat in the head, face, and across his leg, which made the MRSA worse. He told me, "Mom, I'm tired of getting beat." And then he said, "I'm sending these pictures to you because one day you're going to need them. They're going to kill me in here." On December the 12th, 2023, at 6:30 a.m., we got a call. He's dead. On that same day, we get contacted from EJI. She says we need to do a welfare check on Derek. There's a video out of him getting beat and stomped by 3 or 4 inmates. And we told her he's dead. Then she starts telling us stuff we did not know. The last month of his life, he was getting beat almost daily. And 2 weeks prior, some COs got him secluded away from cameras and had several inmates go in and beat him and leave him on the concrete bleeding and crying for help. He didn't report due to officers being involved. I do have photos of that time, and EJI does too. One man was charged for murder who was already serving life. But what about the other ones? I'll finish with some words that came to my mind as I was preparing the speech about the Alabama Department of Corrections. Third world country, drugs, murders, rapes, suicides, corruption, extortion, ODs, gangs, and lost hope. And can I just jump back to May of 2017, just for a couple seconds? His first time being in prison, he was at Bullock. He was beaten in the head so severely he had brain bleed. He was stabbed in the throat 4 or 5 times and in the head 4 or 5. He was med-flighted to Jackson, which he flatlined twice on the helicopter. They got him back. They did emergency surgery, which left a plate and screws in his head all over a $14 debt. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Figures, did you want to address us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the committee, I had not planned to speak this morning, but as I sat there and listened to the testimonies of these people, I couldn't help but be pulled to this microphone. And let me say, all of you know, you can just look on the internet, I have a son who has served in the Alabama State Prison some years ago. So I knew about some of the conditions. But at that time, I hadn't heard him say anything about the beatings and the drugs and all of that. But I get phone calls all the time from family members of inmates, black and white. And they talk about the extortions. They talk about the safety issues there or lack thereof. They talk about the beatings, and they talk about not getting proper medical care. And it just pains my heart because I can't do a thing about it. But I've been in the Alabama State Senate for almost 28 years now. And I do know we do things that we want to do things about. And I know that So many people think that once a person commits a crime, it's like they're not even a human being anymore. They're supposed to continue to be punished time and time again. Why do we make the laws to say that they have to serve a certain point? It's taking them out of society. But these people are in the care of the Department of Corrections of the state of Alabama. And it is our responsibility to keep them safe, which is what the federal government have told us and mandated that we do, but we haven't. We have lost so many lives in our state prisons that it is unconscionable and it is truly unacceptable. Why? They are there and they can't, we have drugs in there, they're getting addicted to drugs. And this is supposed to be a place where it's not supposed to be drugs, but we can't do anything about it. That is just unreal to me. Because if it really was something that was important to us, we would do something about it if we really felt that way as an entire legislature. And I know you're just the committee. I was very disappointed, and I know that the entire legislature was invited to this oversight hearing today. I was so disappointed when I drove up this morning and the parking lot was literally empty.
Senator, with all due respect,
I know,
I invited the legislature.
I know you did.
About 2 or 3 weeks ago. Many of them already had travel plans, all that. Please don't stand there and...
No, Mr. Chairman, like I said, when things are important to us, what needs to happen is that the legislators need to spend some time in these prisons for a couple, 3 days without any protection. And let us feel what they go through. Because this is just, it breaks my heart. And I pray that we can find something to do to protect these people who have been put there in our custody, that we're supposed to be keeping them safe, that we could at least do that. They've committed their crimes, they should do their time. I never used my position or anything to try to get my son any kind of leniency before. So they should do the time, but they should be safe while they're doing it. And I would just implore to you that, please, make this a priority for us. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Senator. Any other final comments by Representative England?
But I do want to point out that I believe this is the largest attendance from legislators that we've ever had.
That is correct.
Again, that's not to be taken lightly. These aren't conversations that several years ago that were occurring publicly. This sort of accountability has changed things. And I want to continue to encourage you to do this because just a year ago, the parole rate was 6% for an entire year. Now it's over 20. It's not enough because it's not a reasonable suggestion to believe that there are only 20% of the people who are on parole in our prison system that are eligible and should be released. But the fact of the matter is, this sort of accountability, the attention that you're drawing to this issue has increased the parole rate. Sad to say that, because it should be based on data, guidelines, and of actual risk assessment of the person that's standing in front of them. But it's hard to deny the fact that as the pressure has increased, the media attention has increased, and your involvement, the emails and the attention that you've drawn to this issue now has increased our parole rate. So I can't encourage it enough. Your involvement is helping. The attention that you're drawing to these issues is changing things. But now is not the time to get discouraged and get mad and point fingers. Now is the time to continue to organize, build your army, and continue fighting. When you see the progress, it's not time to rest. It's not time to get mad at the people that you're pointing at. It is time to continue to organize and fight harder. You're seeing progress because of y'all. So And I know I see a lot of familiar faces in this room. I want you to look around and see the number of people continue to increase. It's because you are talking about it. We're fussing about it. There's legislation being introduced about it. And I'm telling you, we're making progress. So just keep working. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative England, and all that have attended today, all that in person and online. I know there are several legislators that have told me they are online. There may be others, I don't know, but we will have our next meeting. Let me repeat that date. Wednesday, October 23rd at 10:30 a.m. Again, that will not be a public hearing, but it will be a meeting of the committee, and we'll have specific speakers at that time. So thank you all for being here today. We are dismissed.